I found out my best friend was sleeping with my wife 2 days before our 5th anniversary dinner, the dinner I had spent 3 weeks planning. I want you to sit with that for a second. Not the betrayal itself, though that's coming. Just the image of me, standing in the kitchen at 11 at night, going over the reservation confirmation for the 4th time, making sure they had the right table by the window, the one my wife, Rebecca, had pointed out the first time we ate there, back when we were dating. She had pressed her finger against the glass and said, "That one. That's our table." So for our 5th anniversary, I had called the restaurant 6 weeks, explained the story to the hostess, and she had actually remembered us and held it. I was standing there, double-checking the email, when my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't open it. I don't know why I did. Call it instinct. Call it the universe deciding I had been in the dark long enough. The message was 3 words. You should know. And then, a photo. I won't describe it in detail. What I'll say is that there was no room for interpretation. It wasn't a hug that could be explained away. Wasn't a glance that could be called nothing. It was my wife and my best friend Garrett. In what was clearly his apartment. I recognized the ugly green couch he'd had since college. And what was happening between them was unmistakable. I put my phone face down on the counter. I stood there for a long time. Then I picked it up and looked again. Because some part of my brain kept insisting there had been a mistake. That part of my brain was wrong. Garrett and I had been friends since we were 9 years old. We grew up 3 houses apart on the same street in Columbus, Ohio. We learned to ride bikes together. We were in each other's weddings. He was my best man. When my dad had a health scare 4 years ago, Garrett drove 2 hours to sit with me in the hospital waiting room without being asked. That's the kind of friendship it was. The kind you see is permanent. The kind you stop questioning because it's always just been there. Rebecca and I met in our mid-20s at a work conference. She was in marketing. I was in project management at a logistics company. She walked up to me at the coffee station and told me I had taken the last of the dark roast. And she needed it more than I did. I gave her my cup. She said that was the most romantic thing anyone had ever done for her. I thought she was joking, but I asked for her number anyway. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. Got married in a small ceremony in upstate New York. Just family and close friends. Garrett gave a toast that made everyone laugh, and then made my mother cry. Rebecca said it was the best speech she'd ever heard. I trusted both of them completely. That word feels almost embarrassing now, how easily I used it. After I saw the photo, I didn't call anyone. I didn't text Rebecca. I didn't call Garrett. I just went to bed, which sounds insane. But I think shock has a way of making you act completely normal on the outside while something is coming apart on the inside. I lay in the dark, and I thought about the last several months. Whether there had been signs. There were. I can see them clearly now, the way you don't see things clearly, after you understand what you were actually looking at. Rebecca had started being vague about her Thursdays. She went to a yoga class that she never seemed sore from. She had started laughing differently at Garrett's jokes, a little too quickly, like she was performing for someone. Once, about 2 months before, I had mentioned Garrett's name at dinner, and she had looked down at her plate for just a half-second too long. I had filed that away without knowing why. I had been filing things away without knowing why for a long time. The next morning, Rebecca left for work early. She kissed me on the cheek the way she always did. I watched her go. Then I called in sick to work, which I never do, and I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, and I started putting things together. I drove to Garrett's apartment that afternoon. I hadn't called ahead. I didn't want to give him time to prepare a version of events. He answered the door in a t-shirt and sweatpants, clearly not expecting anyone. When he saw me, something moved across his face. Not guilt, exactly. More like the look you get when you realize a conversation you've been dreading is happening right now, today, without warning. "Hey," he said. "What's up?" I showed him the photo on my phone. He didn't deny it. He didn't try to explain it. He looked at the phone, looked at me and said, "Can you come in?" I said no. "Ryan," he started. I said his name back to him, just his name, and something about the way I said it made him stop talking. I told him I wanted the truth. "How long?" He looked at the floor. 7 months, he said. 7 months. I did the math standing there in his doorway. 7 months ago we had all 3 gone to a birthday party for a mutual friend. Garrett had given a toast at that party too. I had driven home afterward thinking what a great night it had been. I asked him if he had any idea what he had done to 26 years of friendship. He didn't answer. He just kept looking at the floor. I left. I drove around for about an hour before I could make myself go home. Rebecca was already there when I got back. She was in the kitchen making dinner, and the domesticity of it, the smell of garlic, the familiar sound of the pan, hit me in a way I was not prepared for. I walked in and sat down at the table. She turned around and looked at me. She knew immediately. I don't know how, but she did. "Ryan," she said. I put my phone on the table with the photo facing up. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she sat down across from me and she said, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She said it 3 times, as if repetition would make it land differently. I asked her the same question I had asked Garrett. How long? 7 months, she said. Same answer. Obviously they had talked about what to say if this ever happened. The coordination of it, even their confessions were synchronized, turned my stomach. She started to explain. I let her talk for a while. She said things about feeling disconnected, feeling unseen, feeling like we had turned into roommates, who were polite to each other instead of partners. Some of it I understood. Some of it felt like she was editing herself in real time, choosing the version of the story that was least damning. At one point she reached across the table and put her hand on mine. I moved my hand away. I told her I needed her to leave for the night. Just for the night, I said, to give myself time to think. She nodded. She packed a bag. She didn't argue, which maybe should have told me something. She texted me from the car. I love you. I want to fix this. I sat with that text for a long time. I didn't respond. The next few days were the strangest of my life. I went to work. I ate meals. I had normal conversations with coworkers about normal things. Externally, I was completely functional. Internally, I felt like I was operating behind a thick pane of glass, watching my own life from a distance. I canceled the anniversary reservation. The hostess was very understanding. I called my older brother Kevin that Thursday. We talked for 2 hours. Kevin has always been the steadier one of us. He's methodical, measured, the kind of person who can think clearly under pressure. He didn't tell me what to do. He just listened, asked good questions, and at the end he said, "Whatever you decide, make sure it's your decision. Not what anyone pressures you into." That mattered more than I can say. I told 2 other people. My coworker Jesse, who I've known for 6 years, and who can keep a secret better than anyone I've ever met. And my cousin Andrew, who had gone through a divorce himself 5 years ago, and understood something about the specific pain of feeling like you don't know the person you thought you knew. I didn't tell my parents yet. I knew if I told my mother it would stop being my situation and become a family situation, and I wasn't ready for that. Rebecca called me every day. The calls were always the same. She was sorry. She had ended things with Garrett. She wanted to go to couples counseling. She wanted to try. Garrett called twice. I didn't pick up. On the 8th day I let Rebecca come back home so we could talk properly. We sat in the living room. Not at the kitchen table. I couldn't be at the kitchen table. And we talked for 4 hours. I won't pretend it was all shouting. Some of it was quiet and sad in a way that was almost harder than being angry. At one point we were both just sitting in silence for a long time, and I think we were both grieving something, just different things. She told me she had already found a therapist, individually. She had already cut off contact with Garrett completely. Blocked him everywhere, told him it was done, told him she was choosing her marriage. I asked her why she had started it in the first place. She gave me the same answer as before, feeling disconnected, feeling like I was always half present, always managing something at work in my head, even when I was physically there. And here's the thing I didn't want to admit. Some of that was true. I had been deep in a rough stretch at work for most of the previous year, a major project that was hemorrhaging problems, and I had been distracted, not checked out, but distracted. I had been telling myself I was handling it all fine. I was not handling it all fine. That doesn't excuse what she did. I want to be clear about that. There is nothing that makes what she did okay. But sitting there in the living room at 10 at night, I had to be honest with myself about the fact that our marriage had been quietly struggling. And I had been pretending it wasn't. We decided to try counseling, together and individually. I told her that I wasn't promising anything. I wasn't promising I could get past it, but I was willing to try. She said that was enough for now. I want to tell you what happened with Garrett, because that part was its own separate grief. I did not call him back. Not that week, not the following week. About 3 weeks after everything came out, I sent him a text. It said, "I don't have anything to say to you right now. Maybe not ever. I need you to respect that." He texted back, "I understand, I'm sorry. I'll wait as long as you need." I haven't responded to that text. What people don't understand, who haven't been through something like this, is that the loss of the friendship almost hurt more than the betrayal itself. Or maybe it hurt differently. A different shape of hurt. Rebecca and I had been building something, and it had broken, and there was at least the possibility of rebuilding it. Garrett and I had already built something. 26 years. And it was just gone. There was no rebuilding that. You cannot unknow what someone is capable of doing to you. I packed up the things he had left at our place over the years. A jacket, some books, a set of keys, a phone charger that had lived behind our couch for 2 years, and I put them in a box and left them in my car. I've driven past his street a few times without stopping. The box is still in my trunk. I don't know what I'm waiting for. Rebecca and I went through 6 months of couples counseling. Our therapist was a woman named Dr. Patterson, which sounds made up but is actually her name, and she was good, patient. She had a way of asking questions that made you feel like the answer was already inside you. She was just helping you find it. It was hard. There is no way to describe couples counseling after infidelity, Except to say it is like sitting in a room and being forced to look directly at all the things you have both been avoiding for years. Not just the affair, everything around it. The patterns, the distance, the things you said wrong and the things you didn't say at all. There were sessions I drove home from in complete silence, just needing to sit with whatever had been said. There was one session where we both cried, which surprised me more than anything. I had thought I was past the part where I cried. I was not past that part. Slowly, something started to shift. I don't want to make it sound like a movie where things resolve cleanly, because they didn't. Trust doesn't come back in one piece. It comes back in fragments, and sometimes the fragments don't line up right. There were nights when I would be fine, and then something small, a notification on her phone, her laughing at something I couldn't see, would bring everything back, and I would have to sit with that feeling until it passed. But things were getting better. Slowly and imperfectly and with a lot of backward steps. But better. We moved apartments. That helped more than I expected. The old apartment had too much history attached to it. I couldn't look at the kitchen table without remembering that night, couldn't sit on the couch without thinking about the weeks after everything came out. The new place is in a different part of the city. A third-floor unit with more light. Rebecca picked out new furniture. I let her pick most of it, which was partly generosity and partly just that I needed her to have something to pour energy into. We got a dog. His name is Biscuit, which I thought was a ridiculous name until I met him, and it became the most obviously correct name I had ever heard. He's a beagle mix with terrible manners and an inexplicable fear of plastic bags. He's the best. Life had started to feel livable again. And then, 18 months after everything, my phone rang. It was a Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen making coffee. Rebecca was still asleep. Biscuit was doing his thing where he sits 3 inches from you and stares like you're holding food hostage. The call was from Garrett's mother, Linda. My stomach dropped when I saw the name. I almost didn't answer. But Linda has always been kind to me. She used to send me birthday cards until I was well into my 30s, handwritten ones. Which nobody does, and I couldn't make myself send her to voicemail. I stepped out onto the balcony and picked up. She sounded older. Or maybe it was just the phone, or the morning, or maybe I just hadn't heard her voice in so long that the change was more obvious. She said, "Ryan, I'm sorry to call like this. I didn't know who else to reach." I didn't say anything. I just waited. She told me that Garrett had been in a car accident 6 weeks ago. A bad one. He had been in the hospital for a month, and was now home recovering but couldn't work. He had been on short-term disability, but it was running out. His rent was due. She was on a fixed income and couldn't cover it. She had already asked everyone she could think of. She was calling me because she didn't know who else would help. I stood on the balcony, and I watched a pigeon do something weird with a piece of bread on the roof across the street. And I thought about everything. 18 months of grief. And rebuilding. And learning how to trust, again. 26 years of friendship, before that. Every birthday and road trip, and stupid inside joke. And also what he had done. And also that I had packed his stuff in a box that was still in the back of my car. Linda said, "He didn't ask me to call you. He doesn't know I'm doing this. I didn't know who else." I asked her how much was the rent. She told me. I was quiet for a moment. Then I said I'll think about it and get back to you today. She thanked me, very quietly, and we said goodbye. I went back inside and I sat at the kitchen table. The new kitchen table, in the new apartment, which has its own set of memories now. Better ones. And I sat there for a long time. Rebecca woke up and found me sitting there. She saw my face and sat down across from me without asking. I told her about the call. She listened. She didn't give me an opinion. She has learned, over the past year and a half, when I need her to give me an opinion, and when I just need her to hear something. She has gotten very good at knowing the difference. Biscuit jumped up and put his head on my knee, which he's not supposed to do, and I let him. Here's the thing I keep coming back to. I had been so sure for 18 months that I knew exactly how I felt about Garrett. That the answer was simple. He was gone, and it was his fault, and that was the end. But sitting at that table, I realized the answer had never been simple. It had just been easier to pretend it was. The 26 years didn't disappear because of what he did. They're still there. All of it is still there, the bad and the goods, sitting on top of each other in a way that doesn't resolve neatly. I'm not sure that I'm ready to talk to him. I'm not sure I ever will be. What he did was a real thing that caused real damage, and sorry doesn't erase that, and I don't think I owe him forgiveness on any particular timeline, or maybe at all. But Linda had nothing to do with any of it. She just loves her son and ran out of people to call. I sent a payment that afternoon. Enough to cover the rent and a little extra. I sent it to Linda directly, not to Garrett. I included a note that said I hoped he recovered well, and that the payment didn't mean anything beyond what it was. Help in a hard moment, from someone who once knew him well. I don't know if that was the right thing to do. I genuinely don't know. I've been going back and forth on it ever since, and I think I'll probably keep going back and forth for a while. That's the part they don't show you in movies. How few things actually resolve. You just learn to carry them differently. What I do know is that when I got up from that table, Rebecca was standing at the counter making coffee. And Biscuit was doing his plastic bag fear thing. At a grocery bag by the door. And the light was coming through the windows the way it does on a Saturday, when there's nowhere you have to be, and for the first time in a long time that felt like enough.